Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. I'll tell you what, we're down to the wire on these. 5 left. Very exciting. Usual animal chaos in the background. Why is this so short? Okay. Let's see here. The good old bean protocol. So, the bean protocol is it's a little bit more than a diet, as with other things. It's a lifestyle, and it does have like some specific lifestyle components, but it's basically a diet, and it's the last like special diet that I have tried for my health concerns. I think I tried it for the first time in 2021, and I found out about it from like some podcasts and stuff. The main person I heard about it from, her name is Unique Hammond, and she had really, really severe Crohn's and healed her Crohn's with it, which is totally incredible. Like, really, really amazing success story. And I basically, it, as one could guess from the name, it focuses a lot on beans and consuming them. And the origin story of this protocol is very interesting. Essentially, the woman who came up with it, Karen Hurd, her really young daughter was dying of like liver failure, I think, from organophosphate poisoning, and the medical establishment was not giving her much hope, and she ended up curing her daughter. As the story goes, I have no way to verify this. She ended up curing her daughter by giving her not beans, but psyllium husk, which is a really good source of soluble fiber. Because one of the primary detox pathways of the body is for like toxins and whatever else to be excreted into the bile, and then bile gets secreted into the intestines during digestion, and in theory will leave the body. However, there is a mechanism called hepatic recirculation, where a lot of the bile is reabsorbed at a certain later point in the intestine, because the body is thrifty and it likes to recycle the bile acids. And so with certain compounds, including some toxic compounds, that reabsorption of bile can also lead to reabsorption of toxins. And that excess hormones, I think, are also detoxified that way a lot of times. And so reabsorption of bile can include reabsorption of hormones or failure to excrete hormones, things like that. Anything that's like fat soluble. Water soluble things have a totally different pathway. So, soluble fiber can bind to bile acids, and their associated, toxins or hormones or whatever else are like sort of associated with them in the intestine, and prevent reabsorption. And this is not pseudoscience. This is a very well-known phenomenon. Incidentally, this is the mechanism by which oats can claim that they lower cholesterol, because cholesterol is used to make bile acids, and oats are a really good source of soluble fiber, as is psyllium husk, as are beans. So essentially, Karen Hurd just kind of took this like very basic like physiologic phenomenon and built it into a whole protocol. And dietary framework and ideology and whatnot. And a big bulk of the people who it's marketed to, I guess, are like women with hormonal issues like PCOS, because as the story goes, the fiber will bind to excess like estrogen and carry it out of your body. So the initial stages of the protocol, and they do have like customized protocols depending on like what your health concerns are. But like the early stages of the protocol, if you're dealing with like a hormone imbalance or something like that, usually involve eating small amounts of beans very, very frequently, like could be upwards of every 20 minutes, because the intestines are sort of like always excreting stuff. That I have not verified. That could be verified by somebody who is interested in verifying that. But yeah, anecdotally, loads of people have great success with the bean protocol. Aside from really emphasizing eating, they really hammer home the beans thing, but like there are a lot of other foods that are good sources of soluble fiber, like steel cut oats and barley and psyllium husk and like various starchy vegetables and stuff. But like fair enough, beans are, as like a category, are definitely the highest. But anyway, wow, I just totally lost my. Oh, the other components of the protocol involve eating a lot of nuts, like a lot of nuts, and they have to be salted. I listened to Karen's explanation for why the nuts have to be salted on some podcasts, and it sounded real sketchy. But you know, nuts are nuts, whatever. When I did it, I did not follow the nut requirement because it's like so many nuts, and my body personally does not do great with that quantity of nuts. But anyway, a lot of nuts, and then no sugar of any kind, including no fruit, which for me was by far the hardest part. No dairy of any kind. None of the fun foods like chocolate or coffee or whatever. No stimulants, essentially. It's that is an interesting thing about the bean diet, is it incorporates bean protocol. Sorry, it incorporates a lot of like nervous system calming components, which is cool and probably contributes to its success for a lot of people. But yeah, that's essentially. Oh, and then depending on what you're dealing with, they'll also sometimes recommend trying to separate your beans from your fats. So like having a fat snack is often part of the protocol, where like your main meals will try to be lower fat, and you'll include your beans there, and then get your fat sources like separate from the beans, because supposedly if the fiber binds with fats that are just in the food, it has less binding capability to the bile and such in the intestine. Sounds reasonable. I tried to verify whether that happens, and let me tell you, trying to find like good quality research on these like kind of nitpicky how things interact once they're in the body questions, it's like the worst kind of like it's awful, because like in order to study things, you have to study them like outside the body usually, because you can't just like get in there. So it's just like a whole category of research that's like really clunky and really annoying to try to read through, and there'll be like random experiments in like animals with like certain isolated types of fiber, and then the ways of measuring it are like, you know, it's just the worst. So whatever. If it helps people, that's great. And yeah. Um so yeah, I had an interesting experience with the bean protocol because beans were a category of food that I had basically avoided for a really long time because it's just like in the culture to kind of assume that like if you have any kind of gut issue, you got to stay away from beans because they'll just like make you bloated and gassy. And I already always struggled with being bloated, so why would I add beans to the equation? And I would notice being more bloated when I ate beans. Um, but lo and behold, when I did the bean protocol and kind of slowly like started out with really small amounts and like ramped up over time, turns out my body really likes beans. I was a little bit more bloated initially, but my gut adapted. And once it adapted, I found that a ton of foods that had previously bothered me and made me really bloated no longer did, particularly FODMAPs. So I had had a very long history of having digestive discomfort from eating FODMAPs. And once I was eating just a lot more fiber in general, but specifically soluble fiber from beans, I like my problems with FODMAPs just kind of went away. So that was great. I also, I don't know why I always do this. I don't always do this, but I will often like tweak protocols to make them even harder for myself. Like with the keeping fats and beans separate. The first time I tried the bean protocol, I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that." But what if I what if I just eat no fat at all? Because I had also been curious about what a super low fat diet would do for me, and I had never tried that. And like, just to be clear, eating no fat is not part of the bean protocol. They would not recommend it because your body needs fat to be healthy in most cases. Like you would only want to do, in general, like you only want to do extremely like macronutrient limited diets for like very specific therapeutic purposes and ideally for only like a short time. But I don't know, something in my psychology just like does stuff like this sometimes. I don't know. So for like a month or two, it might have been 2 months, I don't know, I was doing the bean protocol and also basically eating no fat. And I felt great. My gut was really happy. I want to say my skin was better. A lot of things were better. Wait, no, my skin was worse. A lot of things were better and a lot of things were worse. My heart rate variability was really, really high, like crazy high. My resting heart rate was a lot lower. But my skin started getting like dry and flaky, and that kind of makes sense with eating no fat. And I also lost a lot of weight that I definitely didn't need to lose. So that was my first experience with it. And I finally, like 2 or 3 years later, did like tried it again, actually following the rules and not doing like this weird Alyssa version of it. And my body still really likes it. It was much happier with me actually eating fat this time. Not a sustainable thing for me long term, mostly because of the fruit. Holy cow, I missed fruit so much. Like, I will say one incredible thing about doing, I did it for a month. I did it strictly for a month. This was like end of last year, so like 6 months ago or something. And one of the best things about it is it really made me appreciate fruit. And I never once had the craving or desire for any kind of sweet or sugary food other than fruit. It's like, I don't give a crap about ice cream. I don't give a crap about cookies. I just like, give me a banana, give me a kiwi. I would do anything. I would do anything for a banana. And like, normally I find bananas to be very mid, like very mid fruit. But man, the first banana I had post Bean Protocol month, oh, it was so good. Like I would like cut out all sugar again for a few weeks just to have that appreciation for fruit again. Because it's so easy to like slide back into having having sugary like treat foods when you don't even really want them. Like I honestly I don't really have anything against sugar. I I don't know. It's whatever. That's a topic for another day. Um but I don't really feel like it adds that much value to my diet to like have to just like be in the habit of like eating ice cream or eating like a chocolate bar or cookies or whatever when it's not something that I'm like really craving. Um so yeah, anyway. Um but yeah, the other like helpful takeaway from that experience was recognizing that like it didn't do anything magical for me, and kind of it kind of broke the final chains in my mind of like seeing diet as this potentially like miraculous tool um for or like a magic bullet. Like if I and like I've been out of the trying weird special diets mindset for like a decade now, but I think that part of my psychology was still just not fully dead. Like there's still a tiny part of me that believed that if I just found and committed to the right diet, maybe that would be a magic bullet. And yeah, this just kind of finally broke that. Like I could very clearly recognize the benefits. I could clearly recognize the downsides. I could take what was valuable to me and carry it forward in my life and not give importance to the other restrictions just because they were restrictions. Like it's very easy for me to think that something's a good idea just because it's hard. Like, oh yeah, because this is like difficult and self-punishing and like self-depriving, therefore it must be good for me, or it must be healthier, it must be like a morally better thing to do. um so yeah, it was nice to have that experience. um Definitely on the whole, like my whole experiences and thoughts with Bean Protocol, biggest takeaway is that if you have like a fiber intolerance or like a FODMAP intolerance, I don't know, for me, adding more fiber actually made that better. And yeah, so just keep that in mind. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like most people don't really eat beans on a regular basis, and they're really a great food. So yeah, that's all I have to say.